One's a classic John Wayne adventure, the other is its faithful foray into realism. True Grit. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome to They Remade It. I am your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And welcome to our first, long distance recording.
Yep, we're in different locations this time, and it's going to be like this for probably ever now.
Yeah, probably. We have kind of our own lives to live at the moment, so we're just like, yeah, we can make this work.
Yep, got resettled back home, and I may not be here to stay, but I'm definitely not going back there. So.
No, I mean that's fine. Nothing for you back here much. Here in the middle of Trans-Siberia. You'll never know where we are. the border between Siberia and Transylvania.
That's a really thin border.
Yeah. So thin I don't even know if it exists.
So what do you been doing? What have you been watching these past couple weeks?
I actually watched through a couple of not like kid movies. I never like calling them, but more like kind of family oriented ones, like a couple Marvel films. Rewatched Atlantis: Lost Empire. I just kind of in a more jovial mood,
That's a good one.
I finally saw Thor Ragnarok and the first half of Black Panther. Didn't get to the second half yet.
That's actually funny because I have seen the second half, but not the first half.
Together we make one. Together we make one informed viewer.
Nah, my father rented it not too long ago, and I caught the last half of it. Didn't bother seeing it in theaters. I kind of fell off that wagon a long time ago. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I've been
needing to. Oh yeah, like Marvel. Yeah, with Marvel movies especially. I've been needing to go back to the theater more often, but not a whole lot's been out that much lately. It's been all stuff I've been trying to catch up on.
I know. I do want to go to the theaters. I never seem to have time, and when I do have time, it's like, do I really want to go, or am I just hyping it up in my head? Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I've always found the theater to be kind of a social experience as well. It's like, why would I go alone when I could go with people?
Yeah, let me tell you, seeing Ready Player One in a theater with only 2 other people was pretty magical.
Still haven't seen that. I need to get on that. I don't know what's wrong. Of all the people who needs to see it, I'm probably near the top of the list at this point.
Oy. I do want to see A Quiet Place in theaters, which it's already been in theaters for a while, but there's at least one nearby that will have it for the next month. I know that for a fact.
Oh yeah, it's really good. It's really worth it to see in theaters, especially for the obviously for the sound.
Yeah, I should. I just need to get to it, and I already, based on the trailer alone, I already made a pact to myself that I'm going to go see Christopher Robin when it comes out.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm so excited for that one because I'm a child.
Yeah. I can't even say it looks good. It just looks fun.
Yeah. I mean, fun. It looks interesting. It looks different. And, I like Ewan McGregor and I like Winnie the goddamn Pooh.
Yeah.
my childhood just brought back to life. Speaking of which... I don't know why I'm saying speaking of which. I don't really have any major connection to these movies we're doing this week.
Oh, really quick. I want to... I wrote down 2 that I literally have only watched 2 movies besides these in the past 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But, way lower tier Disney movies. I rewatched The Three Musketeers. The animated one.
Like the Mickey Mouse and Company one?
Yes. Because it's on Netflix, and I saw it on Netflix. I was like, I haven't seen that probably since it came out on video.
I used to own that DVD. I have probably seen that film more times than I care to know.
I actually do. I like it. I think it's funny. I wish it wasn't a musical. I
Yeah,
don't
it's a
really
little
like the
weird.
songs. I know
And
it's
like
Disney, but
they're all based off of like old classical music songs, which is really weird.
yeah, they are. The only part that works is the opera. They do the Pirates of Penzance, and that's only because it's they don't like change the words to anything. It's just that opera.
Right, it's just the
But
Pirates of Penzance.
yeah, and the other one was Teacher's Pet, which I remember the television cartoon, but I didn't know there was a movie. I found out there was a movie, so I watched it.
I have heard of that, but I have no idea what it is.
The animation designer for it's Gary Baseman. He's responsible for the art design behind the Cranium games. You
Huh.
ever see those? It's a really distinct art style.
Yeah, I've seen it. I
Yeah,
think I have like a picture in my brain of what the show looks like. I'm sure I've seen it. I can't for the life of me remember anything about it.
right. It's literally just a dog wants to become a human, so he dresses up as a human boy and goes to school, and that's it.
Yep, I remember it now.
Uh, the movie's nothing to write home about. I just
I,
wanted to say that I watched it.
no, it's fine. I mean, I didn't imagine it was anything amazing.
Yeah, that's all. We can start the actual show now.
Moving right on. So yes, as mentioned earlier and obviously in the cold open, True Grit, our first delve into Western films.
Yes.
And
Uh,
and little fun fact about me, I had never actually seen any John Wayne films until this.
really?
Yeah, I'd always I'd heard all the stereotypes and everything, and people playing up the accent and everything. Never actually seen one of his films until now, and pretty good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know
The
anything about
only
the man.
the only John Wayne film I had ever seen up to this point was The Sons of Eddie Izzard. I don't know. It's some lady. I don't remember the whole title. It's The Sons of something, but I remember distinctly watching it a
Yeah,
long time ago. I was like 12.
yeah, I'm sure I could find it somewhere.
Oh yeah, especially it's. I mean, it's the Duke. He has like a million websites that have his filmography on it, let alone IMDb and Wikipedia. So,
Gotcha. I don't
anyways,
see it on his IMDb at the moment, but I'm sure I'll find it later.
yeah, that's fine.
But yes, we are going into the good old 19. What year was that one? 1960 something. Uh,
69.
the 1969 and 2010 versions of True Grit, which amazingly similar to each other. So, for the sake of simplicity, as I recount the plot summary this week, I will just give the general beats of the whole thing, and then afterward, I'll elaborate on the distinct differences, of which there are not too many, if any at all. I mean, yeah, if any at all. There's tons, but
Right. I can think of two off the top of my head that are pretty big, but
yeah. There's like
that's about
some
it.
general set dressing stuff that's different as well, but for the most part, it's pretty straight on, which is easier for us.
Yes.
Yes.
So let's go.
Hooray! All right. So it kind of starts off as many a Western does. Someone gets murdered. In this case, it's the father of a young Matty Ross killed by a man named Tom Cheney, a man who used to work for him. He is, her father is murdered as they go off to a place called Fort Smith after Mr. Tom Cheney gets drunk, tries to go for a gun to get some lost betting money back, and instead shoots Mr. Ross. Upon hearing of this, Matty Ross and like a manservant deal.
Yeah.
That's the polite way to put it.
Pers- go
she
on.
and she and the totally legally employed black man go to Fort. I'm sorry, that was horrible. Anyway, she
Uh huh.
Matty Ross and company go off to Fort Smith to collect the body of her father and to inquire about the whereabouts of Mr. Tom Cheney in order to bring him to justice. Upon arriving in the town, they bear witness to a hanging, because it's the Wild West. You gotta see a hanging every once in a while. And she then proceeds to wrap up her father's affairs, does some trading, gets some money, and then goes in search of some man who might be able to help her track down Mr. Cheney. From this, she comes along to Mr. Rooster Cogburn, a U.S. Marshal who is the only man in the area with the kind of authority, well, one of the few men with the kind of authority to go after Tom Cheney, who is hiding out in Native American territory. Local sheriffs won't be able to. Along this path, she is then also introduced to a Texas Ranger named LaBeef. It's spelled LaBeouf and like Shia LaBeouf, but the entire thing it's pronounced LaBeef.
I know that confused me with subtitles. I was like,
yeah, exactly. What? Like they make a distinct mentioning of it in the '69 version. It's like the French is LaBeouf, but I say LaBeef. It's like, you know what? That's good on you. Good on you for not giving a shit.
That's very Texas of you.
Yes. So Miss Ross, that being Maddie Ross, she is introduced to Mr. LaBeef and learns that he is tracking down the man known as Tom Cheney, who is also gone by several other aliases, all across since Texas after he had murdered a local senator. And along the way had encountered Maddie Ross's mother, who told him, hey, bring my daughter back so she doesn't go off hunting down a murderer. And Maddie's like, yeah, no, I've already hired the toughest marshal around, so nah. Meanwhile, she hasn't actually hired Rooster at this point. Like I said before, she does some trading, makes some money in a couple pretty comedic situations. And then they proceed along their way. They just... Pause for a second. My mouth is jogging up on me. Bleh. Like, they just proceed on their way. What the fuck am I talking about? No, probably need
They
to...
proceed on their way. I was waiting for you to bring up the Chinese man.
Right. Like, I was
name at the store, and I was gonna quote Little Shop of Horrors. Just go, the old Chinese man sold it to me anyway.
Yeah, I can probably bring. I figured I'd bring that up at some point during like the recounting, since the Chinese man has more of a role in the '69 version.
Yeah,
he's just kind of there for the 10 version.
I don't even really remember him in the 2010 one, at all.
He's just kind of like there to be like, oh hey, this is my shop. Cogburn lives in the back of it. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Okay. I kind of left off, introduces Diddle Beef. And so, I'll just go off like Maddie proceeds to pay Rooster, but then insists on going with him. Okay. So after Maddie has done her various trading for horses and everything, she is left with a significant sum of money and can officially pay Rooster Cogburn to track down Tom Cheney, and in the process insists that she accompany him on this endeavor. He, of course, says, no, this is hunting, bounty hunting specifically, and you're a kid. And so she keeps insisting, and he's just like, fine, you can come with me. And then he ends up screwing her by going off onto a ferry crossing the river into Indian territory before she even gets up. And then she's like, no, takes her newly purchased horse, Blackie, and just fords the river on her own with this horse. Upon reaching the shore, she has found that Ranger LaBeef is also in company. He is, he and Rooster Cogburn have established some form of deal to split the reward back in Texas for Tom Cheney's arrest and hanging. And so they have come in order to help with tracking and knowing the area, because, LaBeef knows tracking, and, and Marshal Cogburn knows the area a lot better. And having, I guess I should probably bring this up from before, turns out Tom Cheney is most likely hiding out with a group of bandits, one of which is known as Lucky Ned, whom Rooster has encountered in the past. He's actually was wounded by Rooster in the past. Take a breath.
I was like, are you gonna?
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going. I'm going.
All right. Actually, I'm not going to bring this up for the thing real quick, but while we're on break,
Yeah.
on my note card, I actually have it written down. The name of the movie. I just forgot it. It's Sons of Katie Elder.
Sons of Katie Elder. Damn.
Katie Elder is the name of it. It's actually the movie that Adam Sandler parodied with the Netflix film The Ridiculous Six.
What the shit?
Yeah.
I
He
mean,
didn't
all
steal
right.
the title, but he stole the premise.
I mean, all right. All right, so get across the river. The beef is in tow, and yeah, okay. Once Maddie gets across, she re-encounters with Cogburn and LaBeef. LaBeef proceeds to pull her from her horse and starts hitting her with a switch, and just being like, he's like, you stupid freaking kid. And Cogburn's like, yeah, I like this kid. She's cool. So he pulls a gun on LaBeef and tells him to stop hitting her. And they're just like, all right, fine. The girl can come. Jesus Christ. Like, just the entire thing is just this whole situation of why are we allowing this? And then Cogburn's just like, no, I want her. She's cool. And so they finally begin out on their trek. By the way, I should probably mention, this takes like an hour in both movies to get to this point. Like, the amount of, like, it takes a long time setting this all up. I'm breezing through it by comparison.
Never mind, I'll talk about it when we're actually analyzing it. Continue.
Gotcha. So their first stop along the way is collecting some information on the whereabouts of where Tom Chaney or Lucky Ned might be, and whatever associates of theirs might be in the area. This proceeds to lead them toward what they would hope to be an abandoned dugout in order for them to take shelter. But upon reaching it, they learn that there are two men already inside who do not want the company. So, Rooster has one of the accompanying people, in one case LaBeef, in the other case Maddie, put a coat into the top of their chimney in order to smoke them out. They get out, one of them gets shot in the process, and are handcuffed and just kind of placed inside as the rest of the company comes in. As they're sitting there, they slowly learn that these guys have some knowledge of where Lucky Ned might be, as they're clearly making more food for themselves than they should. They're clearly gearing up for a lot of people to show up. So the one man who is shot, who's a lot more nervous and persnickety, he decides to break and be like, fine, I'll tell them. That way they can help me, get some medical attention. The other guy then pulls a knife, chops the dude's fingers off, and stabs him in the chest. Rooster then proceeds to shoot the knife-wielding man dead, I think his name is Quincy. And so he's dead, and the other guy is now dying on the floor, and in his last few moments manages to let the company know that Lucky Ned and a whole bunch of his posse are coming there that night in order to rest up and gear up. So the company of Rooster and Maddie, they go off and find a nice vantage point and wait for them to show up in order to ambush them. In the process, in both cases, LaBeef messes it up. I'll say how he does so differently in each case later. And whole thing goes awry. They manage to take down a couple guys, but Ned ends up getting away. And in the process, they learn that Tom Chaney wasn't even with them at the time, so they go off to follow him once again. Take a breath. It's warm in here.
Right? You're upstairs now, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm in the closet, in order to be better with soundproofing.
Oh yeah, that's probably why it's hot.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's cool in the house, but there's obviously no vent in here, so. So I'm just...
I got it.
making do. Let's see, where are we at? Damn, I'm only on 23 minutes now.
We're breezing through. We're gonna have a lot of time to just talk nonsense, which I'm excited for.
Oh yeah, there's also going to be a lot of talk about just the distinct differences, because I've very generalized a few scenes just for that sake.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to regeneralize myself with the plot because after this point I'm like, wait, where do they go? It's like, because in both cases they take pretty different routes. So it's like, okay, ambush must be killed. Now we've come back and to a town. And this is a very generalized fucking plot summary. It goes, after an ambush where Moon and Quincy are killed, Maddie gets face to face with Cheney and wounds him before being kidnapped. It's like, man, that was like
That is very general.
that's like 2 scenes later. Jesus.
They skipped the entire scene where they shoot at Ned Pepper as they're riding towards the
Right.
compound that night. They just glanced over that.
Yeah, and then in the '69 case of having this long drawn out thing of turning in the bodies, going to this like trading post, talking to people, getting a wound checked out, having some food, going off, going camping off, then him getting drunk out of nowhere, them camping out, then she meets him. It's like, shit. This is very generalized. I mean, of course, I'm going to have to do pretty much the same thing since the next couple scenes are so different.
Right.
Timer started off again. Okay. After that whole, debacle of an ambush, Rooster tells the company, "Hey, I think I know where they might be going," and reveals that either Ned or some other person in his company have a holding on some old silver mine up, further north into the mountains. So they start heading that way. In both movies, they do this in very different routes, so I'm just going to be very general here. They proceed out to the area, but fail to immediately find them. At which point, Rooster is off his ass drunk and just being like, I don't know anymore, man. This is like, and
exact quote. That's on IMDb, by the way.
Yeah, surprisingly difficult to quote that one. I had to take a quick shot of whiskey in between, recording sessions just to get that one right.
Well, I appreciate your character acting.
Thank you. Anywho, so they camp out for a night, and come next morning, Maddie goes off to collect some water from the local creek, when all of a sudden, she looks over, and she sees Tom Cheney just standing there with some horses, just like getting water and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, girl." And she's like, "I'm going to kill you or arrest you. One of the two. My motivations are unclear." And proceeds to threaten him, tell him that, "Oh, we've got a whole bunch of marshals up here waiting to arrest you." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't really believe that." And then goes to grab her. She shoots him, and he's like, the hell? He's like, "See, I told you I'd do it." And then she doesn't shoot him again, and she gets kidnapped. She is then, taken in by Mr. Lucky Ned, who yells out to Rooster, "If you don't get out of here in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to kill this girl." So Rooster turns tail and gets the heck out. And so Maddie is alone and taken up to the rest of Lucky Ned's gang hiding up by the silver mine. So she's left there with a couple of very interesting characters who don't really get a lot of expanding on. There's like one guy who like does animal noises for some reason. He's just kind of simple-minded.
I liked his character.
Yeah, he was a clever little character, that one. But yes, she gets taken up, and then Ned then proceeds to be like, "All right, I can't risk being here anymore because they now know our exact position. We got to turn tail and run." And like everybody's okay, and then he's like, "Wait, Tom Cheney, you stay here with the girl and wait." And then obviously both Tom Cheney and Maddie are like, "What?" So Ned goes off. Tom Cheney and Maddie Ross are left all alone, but Maddie is assuming she's safe under the order that if Cheney hurts her, he doesn't get paid by Ned. This obviously doesn't work at all, and Tom Cheney makes a move to kill her when all of a sudden LaBeef pops out of nowhere and he's like, "Hey, I'ma save you." And then like knocked out. Well, no, he knocked out Cheney in one case, but he didn't in the other, which is weird. But she comes in to save the day and then proceeds to be like, hey, come check this crap out. They go over to a ledge near, overlooking this big valley where we see Rooster Cogburn ride up and faces off against the other four members of Ned's gang and proceeds to exchange some classic words, basically being like, Lucky Ned, surrender, and Ned being like, I shall not, have at thee, and they start shooting at each other. And, it's just the kind of classic situation. Rooster's on his horse, he's holding two guns, he's firing at all the people, he hits all of them, but he gets wounded last minute, and right as Ned is about to finish him off, LaBeef from up on the ridge makes an awesome crack shot and takes Ned out from the distance. At which point, everyone's like, oh, everything's great, and then Tom Cheney comes up out of nowhere and hits LaBeef over the head. At which point, Maddie gets up, shoots Tom Cheney, but in the process, knocks herself back into what I guess is like a caved-in mine shaft or something. It's like some pit in which...
The snake pit.
Yeah, this is like some snake pit. She falls in, gets, trapped and kind of stuck, gets bit by a rattlesnake, and is then pulled back up by Rooster. At which point they're like, oh, this is the 1800s. A snake bite's going to kill you. Let's move. So they proceed to hop on Blackie and just tear cheek back across the territory that they had just gone over. And just barrel all the whole way back to, the first place I think they ended up, like that first trading post or wherever where they first got information about the territory.
Yeah.
And then from there, it actually does take two very different routes, which I think we'll expand on now. I'll just go ahead and say that quick generalized. In the 69 version, Rooster goes off with Maddie, and they just kind of hang out at the end of at the end of the movie, and in
Papa's grave.
Yep, they go visit her father's grave, have some kind words, like a nice cute happy ending. Then in the 2010 version, Maddie ends up getting her arm amputated because of the poison, and never actually sees Rooster ever again, or LaBeef ever again, even after attempting to go find him at this Wild West show being shown by two real life characters. Actually, it was Mr. Younger and Mr. James, who were both originally outlaws, actually, and they had just started up their own Wild West show. She learns along the way that he had died just before she had got there to visit him. She places his body on their family plot, and that's just kind of where the movie ends. So,
yes,
very similar movies, but there are a few key differences that I just had to generalize over because it would have been weirder to just go, here's the full plot of the 69 version versus, and then right after that being like, here's the 2010 version, everything's the same until, and then just keep repeating that process ad nauseum.
The same things.
Pretty much, yeah.
The end is one of the biggest differences.
Oh yeah, big time.
A slightly smaller one, you were talking about how long it takes for them to start up.
Right.
Because the 2010 one adds quite a few extra scenes that they pull from the book as material that the 1969 version didn't pull. Yet it still manages to keep a much shorter time, a much shorter running time than a 1969 one does. Because I didn't really notice it until I was sort of pouring back through it for actual notes. And they go through a lot of the trading stuff at the beginning a lot faster in the 2010 one. They just get it over with.
It's more just kind of set up as kind of character building for Maddie, just being oh, she's clever, she's insistent, she's this kind of cool setup, that she's not just this little girl, versus in the original one where it gets near painstaking detail into this trading thing where they're just going back and forth and trying to get all this stuff done. It's geez, just shush it already. Which that can just sum up a whole lot of the stuff in the original with the differences.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk.
Yeah. Also, really quick aside, there's a brief moment in the 2010 version where Maddie gets a letter from her attorney and there's a voiceover by it. Was that the what's the actor who plays J. Jonah Jameson?
J.K. Simmons?
J.K. Simmons. There's a
Uh,
very brief voiceover that I'm all but dead certain was him. So he's technically plays her lawyer.
I'll have to look it up because I don't remember that. I mean,
It
I remember the voiceover scene, but I don't. I think I would have recognized it. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention though. So
I heard it and I just was immediately like, that's J.K. Simmons. I know this J.K. Simmons. It's the
if you
weirdest. I
want,
might be completely wrong, and it might just be some random voice. Like it might just be like Ethan or Joel Coen speaking it, but it's just this
right.
one brief voiceover, and I'm almost certain it's him.
If you want, I'll look it up really quickly. Do you want to go into detail about like the Bear Man?
Oh, the Bear Man. Did he even pop up in the '69 version? I do not remember.
No, he did not.
All right, like that's a bit further down the line. I'm trying to think. Like I'm just trying to go through like some general stuff in the opening that's different. Like it's for the most part, the opening is the most accurate part in both versions. Just the point from where they're in the town right before they go off into the wilderness. One main difference is actually right at the very beginning. In the '69 version, we actually see Mr. Ross and Tom Cheney as they're going off to Fort Smith, and we actually see the murder of Mr. Ross. But in the 2010 version, that's gone entirely. It's just replaced with a very brief kind of scene of Mr. Ross's body and Tom Cheney fleeing the scene with an older Matty Ross giving the voiceover, which I thought was,
Yeah,
which I actually liked a whole lot. It's just kind of trimmed that down a little bit, which tended to be a problem with a lot of those older, like kind of 60s to '70s movies that were just kind of more lighthearted. They were trying to be like, oh, look at this idealistic family. Whereas in this one, it's like the new one is just like, no, it's just what we're here for. Let's do the realistic sense. Where it's like,
yeah.
here's what happened. Here's the setup. We're in Fort Smith. Let's go.
And I mean that's another instance of the Coen Brothers one taking a chance at breaking down how much time they spend on talk and setup because with that brief, I mean they have that brief scene there, but if you're talking about real scenes in the movie for plot purposes, they open up in the casket makers building.
Right.
Not sure the technical term, but the mortician.
Probably the
Uh,
mortician.
they end up they start out there, whereas in the 1969 when you see them at home, then you see the incident play out, then you see her and her assistant traveling there and seeing the spectacle
Right. Like the hanging and
occurring.
everything.
Yeah, all that all that buildup that was there.
Right. Which, yeah, I do. Like, I do kind of see the value of that. But at the same time, I just got to a certain point where, man, people talk a lot in this old one.
Yeah,
But yes, like, I'm trying to move along so I can get to the Bear Man.
oh yeah, yeah.
So I can
Sorry,
get to so I can
get
get
to
to
him.
Forrester. But yes, for the most part, in the opening town scenes, pretty accurate in both cases. You actually see Rooster and LaBeef meeting and talking about the bounty in Texas in the 1969 version, whereas you just only see them first together when they cross the ferry. Beyond that, not a whole lot. There's more prevalence of the Chinese grocery owner, so that's fun.
Oh yeah,
Like for context, Rooster lives in the back of like this Chinese grocery, and the guy there, Mister, like, was it Chin Lee, like something really stereotypical.
yes, yeah. I didn't bother remembering that.
Yeah, like I'm all but certain that that was it, but it might not be. But either way, it's some horribly stereotypical name. Um, that's a bit more that I can think of, but otherwise, the first major differences start up pretty much right after the ferry crossing. There's a brief moment where the both Rooster and LaBeef run off in the 69 version to kind of like make her give chase, but then the scene proceeds where LaBeef hits her with a switch. From that point, it goes much differently in the 2010 version. At that point, LaBeef splits off from their group, or at least a little bit after that moment, and they don't see him again until the cabin raid. But before that point, we find this. There's a brief moment where, in the 2010 version, where we find a hanged man, kind of just out of nowhere, on the path, just to kind of show like the danger of the territory, I guess, and to kind of just see like this ain't your mama's old school True Grit. This isn't John Wayne. This is real stuff. These people die and get hanged and get picked at by crows.
Yeah, that never happened in the John Wayne one.
Nope.
No one got hanged.
Nope. I mean, okay, well, no one got hanged that we didn't get to see it and have fun with.
Oh, you had fun with it.
Maybe.
Okay.
Anywho, we see this body gets they cut this body down and they trade it off to a passing Native American, and they go off and they realize they're being followed because the Native American agreed to fire off a shot if anyone was following along on their trail. Very nice of him. And they were convinced it's LaBeef, just using them as like a walking horse to try and just get on the path a bit easier. But instead, around the bushy corner comes a dude decked out in a bear skin, full beard, trekking along the same body that they had given off earlier, and it's just this dude named Forrester, just hanging out. He's just like. Sorry, I'm just taking a breath.
I got you. I honestly don't care if he was in the book or not. I wish he was not in the movie.
Really?
Yeah,
it
it bothered me. It seemed so pointless. They did set up talk, or set up like some exposition in the dialogue, but I didn't care.
Well, he's the one who. Well, think about it. Like, he's the one in this case who pointed out this one, like the dugout where they were going to take shelter, versus in the other one where they just kind of randomly stop in, have a nice snack at this like trading post, which from that get-go immediately established is, oh, it's not that dangerous out here. There's just this lovely little shop serving stew. Or it's like in this case, in the 2010 version, it's, oh, here's this weird dude in a bear skin. He's the only civilization we got for a while now.
Well, while I do see that, and I see where the contention can come in there, because it does portray a more hazardous landscape, which is sort of what they're going for. It just maybe it's the fact that it seems too detailed for me to have such little payoff. Like, it's a man in this fully decked out design, and his name is like Dr. Forrester.
Forrester.
I am Dr. Forrester. I don't know. He
doesn't even call himself. He doesn't even call himself doctor. He just goes, "My name's Forrester." It's so funny.
Oh, I don't know. It seems like he's supposed to be in the movie more, even though I know he's not, and it bothers me.
I mean, it's kind of a point that I'll probably bring up later as we go into the analysis. But I kind of always figured especially with modern Western movies, it's kind of meant to be more just world expanding, or more just kind of the spice of the times kind of thrown in. Whereas a lot of older films just kind of just be like, oh, it was just a grand old adventure of everything. Whereas modern day we realize, oh, stuff was kind of crazy back then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like that, like just that sort of thing. But
no,
anywho,
I do see that.
Yes. Anywho, I'll go ahead and move on to the next big change, that being the aforementioned dugout ambush, where in both cases, like I said before, LaBeef messes up the attempted ambush by Rooster and Maddie, but in the 69 version, LaBeef actually is still with them. Like, they're all together, and they're all hiding out, about to prepare for this ambush. But in the 69 version, LaBeef fires a shot too early after hearing a shot by Lucky Ned and gives away their position, and the whole thing goes south from there. Whereas in the new one, as only Maddie and Rooster are waiting out, LaBeef comes trotting up and sees the murder that has happened inside the dugout, and then proceeds to get ambushed himself by Ned's gang, who come up and then rope him and then proceed to drag him around as Rooster is firing off shots onto the ground. At which point he himself gets shot by Rooster, who's attempting to hit him with his rifle. And so from there we then see, like, it's a somewhat brutal scene. Like, we see LaBeef there on the ground. But I guess I should probably state at this point who the actors are, because I haven't established it yet.
I honestly didn't even realize.
Yeah, because like I wanted to give the generalized thing of it, but I couldn't really do that by giving the actor names. Okay, I should probably just very briefly mention before I continue any further.
Just go ahead and do the main three, and we can sprinkle in the others later.
Yeah, exactly. Like the main three from each one, in the 69 version being John Wayne as Rooster Cogburn, where was it? Glenn Campbell as LaBeef, and Kim Darby as Maddie Ross. And then in the 2010 version being Jeff Bridges, good old the dude, as Rooster Cogburn, Haley Steinfeld. Yeah, for a second I didn't know what it was pronouncing it. Haley Steinfeld as Maddie Ross, and Matt Damon as LaBeef.
Matt Damon.
So pretty cool cast all around for at least for, like, I don't really know a whole lot of the cast of the 69 version, but I love the cast of the 2010 version.
Oh yeah. They have a lot of really big actors in the 69 one, actually. Like, I don't even mean like big star actors, like a lot of big character actors that you would see in every other film that came out in the span of the 60s and 70s, probably.
Yeah, I do recognize a lot of them.
Yeah, Strother Martin and Robert Duvall, Dennis Hopper, who everyone remembers.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper is like the dude who gets like his fingers chopped off.
Dennis Hopper, who everyone remembers as King Koopa from the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
But that was a lot of fun.
If they ever do a remake of that, we'll be right into there.
Oh, that specifically, yes.
Yes. But yes, back to the point at hand. Ambush. That's pretty much where the difference has changed. There's a brief, pretty like I was about to say. There's a pretty brutal scene but also kind of played up comedically, of Rooster going up to the now injured LaBeef on the ground, this being in the 2010 version, and LaBeef has almost bitten through his tongue, and like Rooster starts like digging around in his mouth, being like, "Hey, I could pull it out for you if you want." He's like, "No, please, it's okay. I can stitch it up." It's kind of messed up, like just seeing him like this LaBeef's character just like choking on blood and finger.
That was really funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was interesting, but still. Let's see. Where is it? Yeah, there's a pretty big difference from that point onward. In both cases, they kind of go about finding Ned's gang very differently. In 69, they go off to, like, this other trading post. They have this long, drawn-out thing where they're collecting up the bodies of the men that they found at the dugout shootout. They turn them in for any kind of bounties, have their bodies sent off to like family members and stuff. They talk about stuff a little bit. There's just some back and forth chatter, and then they just kind of go about their way and they don't really talk about it again. Like, I think that they just established that trading post is there for later whenever they bring Maddie there, I guess. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's just kind of weirdly drawn out. Of course, I say that as if the 2010 version isn't much different.
Yeah.
Like, then in the 2010 version, they go off throughout the process. Rooster's drinking heavily because, of course, he is. And at one point, they just start kind of having like this dick measuring contest where they like they're just throwing up like corn biscuits and stuff and like into the air and shoot at them. And like it's more just kind of, I guess, meant to be character building. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Just
Well, both movies handle his drinking like a little differently.
right,
Like in the 1969 one, it's mostly just John Wayne rolling over on himself, like I'm doing a
right.
drunk.
Yeah, it's like
But
it's very like comedic, like pirate drunk. It's like, oh, I'm so
yeah,
silly.
but Jeff Bridges gets to play it up a lot more. He gets to be a ham with it because he's moving around and
Oh yeah, like he's
he's
just very
falling
much
off his horse and stumbling.
right. Like he's very much acting up like actually alcoholic and not just kind of bumbling drunk.
Yeah.
Like he's very much a man who has seen a lot of shit and
John
done a lot
Wayne's
of.
comes off.
You
Okay, John Wayne comes off as more like depressive,
yeah, it's
a
just kind of
lot
like
like just sitting in silence.
it's like, oh well, here I am.
Yep. How'd I get
But
here?
yeah, that's pretty much the. How did I get here? That's it took me a second for that to register. But yeah, they pretty much, they just kind of have this shooting contest briefly in the 2010 version before, in both cases, they reach the area that they would hope to find Ned's gang and everything. And at this point, LaBeef leaves again in the 2010 version, as Jeff Bridges is, or Jeff Bridges, Cogburn in this case is drunk off his ass completely and basically is like, I don't know what to do. I quit on my contract. Sorry, Maddie, you're shit out of luck. And Maddie attempts to leave with LaBeef, but LaBeef is like, nah, I'm too sad. I'm just gonna leave. And goes off and awaits with a now drunk sleeping Jeff Bridges, and then proceeds from there. Like, I'm pretty sure that's kind of the end of the major differences until we get to the shootout.
It is like even the shootout doesn't vary too heavily.
Yeah, like instead of in the '69 version, John Wayne's character is holding a pistol, like a revolver and a lever action rifle, and then in the 2010 version, he's holding just two revolvers.
Yeah.
It's like that's the pretty big difference there. But then the
And
next big. Oh yeah, you had.
oh, I was gonna say the only other big difference I can think of between that and the ending is, I mean, in the 1969 when LaBeef dies,
Yeah,
like they have a scene for his death. After he helps them out of the snake pit, they get up there and he's dead. Like
yeah,
he helped them up and then immediately died. We didn't even get to see him doing anything. We just have to believe that it happened and that it wasn't
yeah.
like some sort of magical desert imp that pulled them up instead.
I think it may have been like, no, yeah, that's legit what happened. I think, yeah, it like, because like in both cases, Cheney ends up hitting him over the head with like a rock. He just gets knocked out though in the 2010 version, but in the '69 version, he just straight up dies. Like he dies of the head wound.
Yeah, he's dead. It's
And
like,
there's
we
also
gotta
a very
bury him, and John Wayne's like, no.
also in the '69 version, after being shot, Tom Cheney doesn't die immediately. Like he gets shot, Maddie falls in the hole, but then like taunts her from the top of the hole, wounded. Then John Wayne's Rooster rolls up and then just shoots him dead and just finishes him off. It's almost kind of anticlimactic. He just kind of comes up, it's like, dup, dup, dup. Oh hey, bang. Anyway,
Yeah, you're dead. Da, 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 da.
he was like, oh, I thought we had wrapped you up. All right, sorry, hang on. Versus like,
Uh-oh, loose thread is lying on the ground.
yeah, versus in the 2010 version, Maddie actually shoots him point blank with a rifle, which actually makes a lot
Yeah.
more sense because the rifle kicks her back into the pit versus the revolver in the '69 version.
Yeah.
So yeah, And then beyond that, yeah, the only major difference is the ending. Like in the one case,
which
60
we
in
already
the
discussed.
yeah, like in the 69 version, they go to the trading post. In the 2010 version, they go to like this little like hut that they started off originally, which you only briefly seen at the beginning of the, and you see in the 2010 version.
Yep. He throws the people off the porch.
Yeah, just like screw you, kids. I'm old and I'm drunk. I do what I want.
Yeah, but that's it for.
Yeah, that's kind of all she wrote for the whole difference. Is very very almost almost uncommonly faithful though. Like entire scenes play out the same. There's a whole court scene at the beginning where they're like
Oh yeah.
establishing Rooster's character as a person. Almost all the lines are identical in both. I think they may have added a couple for the 2010 version, but that's it.
Yeah. I when it I get this feeling whenever I watch a lot of movies from different time periods that stuff from back then it feels so much quicker with the dialogue. They don't care if you're following along with what they're saying or not
Right.
because it's not for you, it's a scene like this you're supposed to think this is happening, so it's so quick paced. I actually really like it in sort of those scenes at the beginning. Later on it gets annoying, but
Yeah, exactly.
whenever they're in the courtroom and it's just quick back and forth, whenever Maddie's trading
Oh
and it's
yeah,
just the quick back and forth, I love it because it feels so real.
right. Because
Whereas
it's appropriate for their establishing scenes and everything. There's so many older movies have much more dry topics as far as like movie topics go. I mean things like Cool Hand Luke and all these sorts of things, very non-action parts, but all the drama, all the fun is through the acting and the back and forth, and that's where the season 9 movie shines. Is in the beginning. It's like just establishing this little rural town.
right. And movies now, especially in the case of this Coen Brothers one that we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
they do a lot of things right. They can do dialogue right, they can do action right, but where a movie like this really shines is where it is just the way that they frame everything.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
think a lot of the shots are a lot better, even if this I don't think the scenes are better. And
oh
it's
yeah,
not
it's
like
absolutely gorgeous.
yeah, it's not even like a graphical standpoint, like, oh, well, the cameras are so much better and we can do so much more with special effects. It's just the way it's framed a lot of the times. It can be an outdoor shot taken in the same place in both instances, but if you frame it a certain way, it's going to look better.
Oh yeah, and I think that'll kind of go into the big, that's always kind of my main thought process with like old westerns versus new westerns is that so much of it in the older western style, it's based around this adventure of colorful characters, whereas in the new one, it's more having to do with the land itself. Like we're only recently kind of like really rediscovering the old west and being like, oh, this wasn't just cowboys and bandits and stuff. This was an incredibly colorful patchwork of a land that we were really just trying to just take advantage of with all its just kind of its interesting oddities.
Yeah.
And I absolutely like. I think for that reason I love modern westerns even more than like older westerns, because I think a lot of older westerns tend to kind of get lost in their own kind of hubbub, whereas the new ones are like it's just this gorgeous journey through this insane part of the world that is just like, oh yeah, this is just like a couple states away from here, and it's like no different than how they're filming it right now. Like literally the town that they filmed Fort Smith in, for the Coen Brothers movie, most of the town actually looked a lot like that. Like a lot of the actual streets and everything were still that old school, really wide street layout, and they just had to add a couple of like fake buildings for the set. Otherwise, it's almost completely the same. Some old town, I think it was in Oklahoma. It was either Oklahoma or Kansas. I
Well,
can't
hand it
remember.
to the Coen brothers.
Yeah, I mean, good on them.
They do really good. They do really good with those rural type of settings. I don't even mean in like a western sort of sense, but whenever
Hmm.
you have like a closed together tight knit community,
Hmm.
those types of things really shine. Like with this and Fargo and
Oh, brother.
Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Yeah, they're
Yeah, it's. I think that it really is kind of their specialty of interesting, like, slice of life regions. Like, yeah, they're kind of like a modern Mark Twain sort of situation.
yeah. It's like it's truly the idea that that the location is a character in and of itself without having to be the giant picturesque New Zealand landscape or a romp across the entire country. It's like, well, we can have it take place in this smallerish community. The community's nothing special, but it can still be a character that gives life to the movie.
Oh yeah, like that it actually is a really cool way of putting it. Like so many other films kind of use these just grand sweeping vistas as like, oh, it's so cool looking and they're going through such like beautiful environments, whereas this, it really does, like, that the way you put it is like, it really does feel like the environment is a character. Like, just the fact, like, of a character like Forrester existing is like just an expansion on that character.
You know what? I'm willing to accept Forrester's existence as if I view it that way. It's a lot more
Exactly.
appropriate, and I know that's the way you were sort of explaining it. But now that I frame it in that mindset, I actually think I'm all right with the Bear
Yeah,
Man.
because he's like, like, he wouldn't make sense in any kind of like practical setting or any kind of storytelling setting. But it's, if you realize it's like, oh, this is basically just a new character trait being introduced, then yeah.
Any other movie would be like, get out of here, Bear Man.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just like
We're
you're.
doing plot now.
I'm trying to think of any situation in which that would happen in the '69 version. He'd probably be more just like a comedic relief character more than anything. He'd kind of show up and there'd be like some light flute music introducing him entering the scene. It's like do 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 do. Like,
Boo
he'd be kind
bo
of,
bo bo bo.
he'd just kind of be walking in. He was like, "I'm Forrester." He's like, it's the same voice, but he's a bit more jovial about it. He's about like kind of like smacking his belly and that sort of thing.
I
He's like,
see like a Radagast the Brown type character that's but more rat like than
yeah,
the Bear Man. He's like, I live off the land. I'll show you where the dugouts are.
that works too. Yeah, he's
John
the
Wayne's like, well, that'd be all right.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Druid. Imagine John Wayne saying things like being a character in Lord of the Rings. They've
Well,
taken
now,
they've taken them to Isengard. Also,
well,
my John Wayne
now,
impression. Also, my John Wayne
I
impression. It's god awful.
I ain't on either side 'cause nobody being all together on my side.
Oh my god, I gotta see more John Wayne movies after this one. This one was really good. Like, from my research, this is apparently one of his better works, at least towards the end. But still,
Yeah, one of his better works, but one of his least favorite.
really,
Oh yeah, I read there's a ton of reasons that he didn't like the movie. He apparently had fights with Robert Duvall on set. He thought Kim Darby's performance was horrible. Apparently,
oh god
uh,
damn.
he didn't think Glenn Campbell should have been in the role. He apparently had problems with everything.
It's weird to think of John Wayne as having problems with anything. It's like, it's like, of course, I've never really known his like him as a person. I've just known his like very stereotypical roles.
Yeah. No, he's definitely you see him as the character more than the actor, even though you see him as the character archetype more
Right.
than the actor.
Like, I kind of figure, like, at this point in his career, he barely had to act to be Rooster. He was just kind of like, he's just done it so often. That's most of his personality.
Yeah.
It's just like,
If You ever see those horribly kitschy, like, Mount Rushmore of Hollywood paintings
Yeah.
that they always have? You always find them in flea markets and whatever, and it's always Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, and John Wayne.
Because of course. And like,
Because of course it is.
like it's just because they're iconic. I couldn't even necessarily say they were all that great. John Wayne's pretty good,
Yeah.
but Elvis?
That's actually fun. It's I was actually discussing that with my grandparents here recently. We were talking about Elvis movies and how
I've still never
a
seen
lot
any.
of them were. Me
No, I
neither.
take that back. I've seen Blue Hawaii.
Ah, well,
Yeah.
a lot of them were produced by Hal Wallace, who produced John Wayne's True Grit.
Oh, I was wondering where this was going. I was like, "Bud, are we gonna have to do a cutaway here?"
Nah, full circle.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that's
So
all I
that's very
wanted to go with.
that's very interesting. All
Yeah.
the various little facts we got going on.
Yep. So while I still have some of this up, I want to go into real quick.
Hmm.
It's a small, it's kind of a small moment in the 1969 version, but it stuck out like a sore thumb in my mind. I guess I shouldn't use sore. I guess I shouldn't use sore thumb because I like it. It's my favorite part in the movie. I can't even say it's a scene. It's a second of a scene.
And that
But
being,
when Maddie first is doing dealings with the horse trader,
oh yeah, like the
and
guy, like who I'm pretty sure, like to go on a further point, I think he was the warden in Cool Hand Luke. That actor. He's like the guy who says,
I
"What we have here is a failure to
failure to
communicate."
communicate.
I'm,
I
I think
He
that might be
have
him
been.
because
He
he looked
might be.
very.
I'll have to look it up.
Because like when I saw it, he looked very, very familiar, and then a couple times he said a tone of voice. I was like, I think that's him.
Right.
But yes, yeah. Sorry to segue. Go back into your.
Oh yeah. Well, they're discussing, and it's at the very beginning of this discussion where he's like, "I'm not taking back those horses. I'm not going to buy them for or I'm not going to sell these for this, and I'm not taking back those ponies." And he's like, she threatens him with her lawyer Daggett. She's like, "Do you know the lawyer Daggett?" Well, I can't say that I do. And then she explains like what he did. I can't exactly remember what
It was
suit
like
he
some
was in with.
like some hostile takeover thing. I don't know.
It was some sort of trading company thing, but it there's not even a smooth transition with the dialogue. It overlaps, but as she's winding down explaining what Daggett was involved in, it cuts back to him and his face sinks and he goes, "Oh," and you can like see him. The actor does a really good job. You can see him like getting sick. It's my favorite
Oh,
moment in the whole movie.
I do
Oh,
kind of remember that. Yeah, I did see him shudder like that. I was like, oh, God.
I rewound and replayed that scene like 50 times, I swear.
I'm glad it made such a good impression on you.
It's my favorite part.
I'm trying to think if there's any particular moments like that in the newer one that I really like. I know there was one. Oh, it was the timing on the girl who played Maddie, like when she said this one line, like she encounters the local sheriff, and he's telling her about all the various marshals that could help her get Cheney. He's like the first one.
Oh
He's
yeah, yeah.
like here's such and such. He's really good at tracking. And there's the mean son of a bitch, Rooster Cogburn. He's been known to drink and such. And there's this such and such man who's good, kind-hearted, and he lets a man go from time to time, but he is the type to give a fair trial and make sure every man has his due. What do you have to say about Rooster? It's like,
Yeah.
I love that
Where can
so
I find?
much because like it kind of like when I first saw the because I saw the newer one in theaters before I ever saw the '69 version, and when I saw that and just the timing she put on it because she kind of like looks to be thinking it over, and the way they kind of set up the lines, it makes you think, oh, she's going to go for the reputable type, the guy who's going to give him a fair trial. She's like, nope, I want the mean motherfucker.
Yeah.
And
But
I loved it so much when I first saw it. I busted out laughing.
Well, because they lean because they have the same exact dialogue in the '69 one for that
Yeah,
setup too,
exactly. And so like,
and
yeah, you go ahead.
in both cases the sheriff leans hard on the last one, but especially in the 2010 one, he makes a point to say that whatever his name is, the last one he mentions,
Yeah,
he mentions that he's the best one. That's the
yeah,
wording he uses. He says he lets a man go from time to time, but he is the best one that we have. And so
and
they
then
lean even harder on it, which makes it all the more humorous.
I know it was so good, and like I like the girl who played the Maddie Ross in the original, but man, the girl in the 2010 version just kills it. Whose names I should probably try to remember, but I'm not even going to try because like
Steinfeld?
yeah, Steinfeld. Uh, that's one of them. I can't remember which.
Oh, that's the newest one. Kim Darby was in the
Got
original.
it, Kim Darby. That was it. Um, but yeah, just Steinfeld just kills it as Maddie Ross. Like she's really comes off more as like vengeful, as clever, as not giving up in the situation. And Darby, plays it up a bit, but she feels very old school, like damsel in distress kind of type, like little girl. It almost kind of seems like kind of out of character for her to be like, I will go to the ends of the earth to hunt this man down. It's like, really? You? Which I almost think,
I don't see this.
yeah, it's like, which almost, I guess, kind of makes it even kind of more fun because it's like, here's this kind of young girl who doesn't know a thing about the world who just straight up has this bloodlust out for this man. It's like,
It's kind of funny.
yeah, like it kind of makes more sense in the 2010 version, but the more you think about it for the 69 version, it's just like, wow, through this entire thing, as she's being like, oh, I'm away from my mama, and she's like dressing up in skirts and stuff. It's just like the fact that she goes so out of her way to just stick along with this hellish trek through, uncharted and dangerous territory just to hunt down this man is insane. It's
And
yeah.
there's so many things, like just small things that I want to touch on. Like I looked it up to like
Hmm.
clear it. That is J.K. Simmons
I knew it. I
reading over the
friggin' knew it.
paper.
I heard him.
The
I just
thing
I
is
immediately knew
that
it.
I know his voice. I just don't. I guess I wasn't paying good enough attention because I don't remember
It was kind of
thinking
a
that it sounded like him.
throwaway scene, and like I tend to pay a lot of attention to newer westerns because I love all the tiny details. And I guess I was just listening out that whole time, and then the moment I heard it, I was just like, I'm pretty sure that's J.K. Simmons. And
Yeah.
so like otherwise, it's a very brief moment. It's glossed over entirely in the 69 version where she
Well,
gets a letter.
yeah. Well, J.K. Simmons is at the very bottom of the IMDb list for the cast too because he's uncredited. He's
Oh,
one of the uncredited roles.
oh yeah, like it's maybe a 3 sentence line. That's about it.
Right, but at that point he was actually a big name. He was in a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. I'm wondering why he did that. Not that he had no reason to, but
Oh yeah.
it is curious.
It's just interesting. I guess it's just one of those situations where it's like the Coen brothers approach you for something. It's like, hey, could we just have like a quick monologue from you for a second? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Sure, what do you need?
Yeah, pretty much.
And for another not as famous, I would say,
Hmm.
but a famous actor who went uncredited in the original True Grit, Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley's involved
Yes, famous for bringing diabetes to the world.
for
The phrase
bringing.
diabetes.
He himself caused diabetes.
Yeah. No, he tried to stop it, remember?
Yeah.
Eat your oatmeal. But
My God.
no, I had to look for him without rewatching the movie. I was like, where is this? Because it was part of the trivia I read for it. He went uncredited, so I couldn't find him in the credits. I I guess he is just and I saw a screenshot of it, but I couldn't find him in the movie.
Was he just like an extra somewhere?
He's seen on a horse, so I'm thinking he's one of the members of Ned Pepper's gang.
I mean, I guess, but at the
I just
very
didn't see
end,
it when I was fast forwarding.
but like at the very end, you see pretty much the whole gang, and he's nowhere to be seen.
That's true.
So
Maybe
it's
he was on a horse riding around town, but the screenshot I saw was pretty full faced. Unless that was like take a photo taken on set. I don't know.
he may have just been like a guy just like walking around the town, and that probably was like a set photo. That's probably the most they could have
Very
gotten
well.
of him. They wouldn't have known to take a picture otherwise.
Yeah, very well could have been.
Who knows? But that is an interesting little extra bit there. God,
Yeah,
I love
his
all the
film
just the little
debut.
I love all the little bits that come along with all these westerns because anytime there's a western, friggin' everybody gets involved because everyone's like, I want to make a western, and so it's so cool to seeing all the little details like that.
It's such a weird paradigm too. I mean, because personally, I enjoyed both these movies, but I am not a Western fan like in the slightest.
Oh yeah, no, I've known that much enough. Like I friggin' love them. I love like I said before, I love modern, like more recently made westerns more than older westerns, but I still love them.
Yeah,
I'm not quite as big into like kind of the cheesy old like adventure stories as I am like really like I'm like I've said in the past, I love the technical stuff of films, like just the cool shot structure and just being able to see that whole landscape and just these beautiful and like gripping scenes and just seeing the oddities of it that come along with it. Hence Forrester.
yeah.
It's just I love it.
The
It's
dark horse
yeah.
of the podcast is Forrester.
Dun dun. He will be one of our recurring characters. Anytime there is a moment needing exposition, Forrester will appear. It's
I'll
like
welcome him.
anytime there's a scene in which we're like, "What the hell happened? Why wasn't this explained?" We will just assume Forrester showed up at some point.
Yes.
Like, like that. It'll be a Forrester appropriate for that movie. Like if we did that for like Scarface, it'd be like some like just like this like weird like Cuban like big fat Cuban guy wearing like a fuzzy hat or something.
They always have to wear something fuzzy.
Yeah, it's like his name would be Forresto.
Forrester.
It's just something crazy
Oy.
like that.
Oy.
Which on the subject of small things that aren't explained, one thing I just remembered in the context of the film, Tom Chaney is described as having a black mark on his face that was caused by like a point blank shot being fired near him, and the powder got like under his skin or something.
Yes.
And it's explicitly mentioned by Maddie Ross to Rooster in the '69 version. I don't remember her ever actually bringing it up in the 2010 version, but Rooster at one point describes him like while they're on the trail, but like having apparently learned it at some point. It's just odd that they never brought it up before until then. Because I'm fairly certain that they
Maybe
don't bring it up beforehand.
maybe I'm supplementing memories. I think I remember her mentioning the black mark, just not explaining how he got it.
Okay.
I could be making that up though. Now
I
that it's in the moment, I
Because like it did seem like they kind of cut a lot of chaff with a lot of explaining things, like from the '69 version, like the introduction of LaBeef, where there's this whole dinner scene, versus in the 2010 version where he just kind of pops up on her, just watching her sleep. I thought it might have been like one of those moments where they just kind of cut out some dialogue and it ended up cutting that too, because I do not remember hearing it. And like I tried to think back on it, but I just can't find the scene.
it's quite possible.
Yeah, it's just an interesting little thing there. Like in their pursuits of, cutting down the fat a little bit, they got rid of a couple scenes of context.
Uh-oh.
It's like whoopsie. Where it's like, and I'm just kind of thinking back like on the subject of like introducing the beef, and it just kind of made me remember there's a lot of scenes when I had first seen the 2010 version I did not think would be in the '69 version. Like there's a scene where LaBeef is like saying like I was thinking of stealing a kiss from you, like, which in both context, like in any context, creepy as hell because he's like 30 and Maddie's meant to be
Yeah.
like 15, and I did not think that would exist in the '69 version. It did. He literally says that to a 15-year-old in the 69 version, and it's weird and creepy. Then there's the scene at the dugout, which this is another difference I just remembered, and this is an insane scene where they they've brought along a turkey with them for dinner, and in the 69 version, and they hand it off to one of the guys they've handcuffed and stolen weapon, like taking his weapons away from him, and they hand him
I
a skinning
forgot this
knife,
scene.
like to start cutting up this turkey, and he that's what he uses to end up killing his partner. Versus in the 2010 version, he had a hidden knife in his boot that he cuts him with. It was like really funny when I thought about it. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Why did they
that's
give this
another.
guy a knife?
If I'm picking like favorite scenes, I guess in the 1969 one, my favorite scene as a whole would probably be that scene right there.
Yeah,
In
because he's just
the
like frantically just gutting up this turkey.
and everyone is like talking so fast over each other
It's
without
so
you can really feel the chaos of it. Like he's
I
chopping
did.
at it.
I did like that. I do remember that now. Like they played up the stress of that really well. Like they kind of did a more subtle route with the 2010 version, but I do really like how they did it in the first one.
Yeah, she's like, stop. She's like, he's chopping that up, Rooster, telling him to stop. And Rooster's like, you cut that up the right way. And then Moon goes, oh, I'm dying. I need a doctor. And then
It's
LaBeef says, shut up. And then she says, my lawyer will help you. He won't help you, though. And then he starts chopping faster. It's crazy.
it's fucking insane. But I had a point here. I'm trying to remember it. I went back to the scene for a reason, and it wasn't this.
There's a
Oh,
rooster in one.
yeah, it was. I remember now. It's like one of the things I didn't expect them to keep in both movies. Like the scene where where Quincy attacks. I think his name was Moon. The name of the
Yes.
partner. His name was
Yeah, it's
Moon,
Moon.
and he pulls the knife on him. And in both cases, he straight up chops his fingers off and then stabs him in the chest. And like I had seen that in the 2010 version, and it was a brutal scene, like how they filmed it. And they still straight up do it in the 69 version. It's almost more brutal because it like lingers on the knife. Like it shows the knife in his hand. And it kind of stays on that shot for like an extra second longer than you think it needs to. It's just like, oh shit.
Oh, it doesn't pull any shots.
Yeah, like I was kind of impressed with it. I mean, that's not to say like movies back then had any kind of, they weren't nearly as strict as earlier movies before that as far as violence went, but still, that one was a doozy.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't expect that, shot to be in there, which I'm guessing is a specific scene that happens in the book. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so prevalent in both movies.
Right. Because, I mean, the Coen Brothers straight up said and told,
And told like Jeff Bridges and company.
yeah, they told Jeff Bridges primarily that to put the first thing they told him was to put the John Wayne version out of his head because they wanted to do an adaptation of the book, not
Right.
of the 1969 film. So these are both adaptations of the novel, not like
By the
one
same
and
name,
then
I
the
believe.
other. Yeah, it's called True Grit. It's
Yeah.
by Charles Portis.
But yeah, it's still funny to think about that. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing a version that's more accurate to the book. Meanwhile, they're almost still like a good 90% the same. Like I'd honestly say that's not too far off. I think maybe like they're between like 75 and 90% the exact same as far as like content goes.
Yeah, just a few scenes here and there.
Yeah, like there's some story details. It really changes at the end, obviously, but otherwise it's pretty freaking similar.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Few things I wanted to bring up. Well, really just one thing, because I already touched on the Wilford Brimley thing. So Kim Darby, who played Maddie Ross in the original one, she looks like she's like 12.
oh yeah.
You know how old she really was?
How old?
She was like 22 and had a kid.
What?
Yeah.
Are you freaking serious? That's insane.
I am serious. She was roughly like 21 to 22 years old, and I read she had already had a kid by the time they started filming too. So she was a mother
God
as well.
damn, man, I don't know whether that was makeup or how she carried herself, but man, she did not give that impression at all. Like
No, it's crazy.
she almost looked younger than Maddie should have been, which was insane. It's like Maddie is meant to be like what, like 14 or 15 or something, and she looked like she was like 10.
Yeah. I think she states in the movie that she's 14.
14, that was it.
I think so.
Yeah. And then Steinfeld actually looks pretty accurate.
Oh, yes.
Which, like, I never, like, was Steinfeld, like, Native American kind of looking to you? Because for some reason I thought that was meant to be a point of it, because, like, between her skin tone and her braids and everything.
I didn't really pick up on that.
Yeah, like, for some reason I just, every time I saw, like, screenshots of her or scenes with her, it was like, she kind of had that vibe of it, but they never make mention of it. You never even see you see hardly any Native American characters in the entire film. In
Right.
both cases.
I
Like,
do remember thinking that when I started watching the 2010 one, I remember thinking that the pigtails were a strange choice. Like they
mhm.
were trying to make, they were like, well, they're pigtails. She's a little kid, so pigtails, but she doesn't carry herself or even really look like a little kid, so it was a weird. It was
Right.
in my mind like she's supposed to be a little kid and she got a hairstyle like a little kid, but she doesn't look like a little kid, and it kind of creeped me out a little bit.
Right, and that's kind of the
Uh,
thought process I had, and that's what I'm like thinking of is like, is it because like she actually has like meant to have Native American origins? Like, because I know that's a common hairstyle, but I
that would
don't.
make more sense
But
if that was
they
the intention.
but they never bring it's never explicitly brought up, and when she's older, she clearly looks very Caucasian. It's like
Yeah,
I don't really know what they were meaning to go for here. It was a little confusing.
I don't know.
So it's like that was just something that I always had nickling in my mind. It's like if that was meant to be the intention, they never went through with it. They just cast the girl and just went on with it.
Come on, Coens, get your shit together.
Yeah, just hiring this poor 15-year-old girl, not doing and shit with it. What's wrong with
What are you doing?
you?
Uh, so are there any are there any other like scenes or any other thing you picked up on in particular you want to bring up? Because I'm kind of running still here. I did take a lot of notes, but most of the stuff we actually did cover fairly
I mean, a lot of it.
easily.
I mean, a lot of it with this kind of thing. This does make the whole like we pretty much hit like every reason why this would be an easy job for us in the sense of a it's a hard reboot and a very faithful one at that, and B, it's not a terribly complex film type. Like westerns in and of themselves are going to be pretty straightforward, so it's difficult to really get more in depth on that beyond just talking about the evolution of the medium of the genre, I should say,
Right.
because like
Ooh.
that's yeah, because I briefly mentioned that like how westerns have kind of evolved from this escapist thing as they go through the filter of realism. It becomes more about the land of the old west. Like they actually worry about the western part, not just the people who are interacting with it.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up real quick before we lean into like what's your favorite,
Oh yeah,
what's
like
your favorite
wrapping up
over the
moments.
other, and
Yeah.
then ending up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one thing is something that they pulled more so from the book in the 2010 one that wasn't a direct scene was the snow. They have a lot of scenes with snowfall because it's supposed to take place, I believe, sometime in the winter, and that wasn't really a
Oh,
thing in the John Wayne one.
yeah, that's true. I do realize that now. I think, given the environment, I think it would probably be taking place like early fall, late spring. Because if it were winter, that entire area would be just covered. I think
Yeah, something.
because I think it's what was it Arkansas where they were? I can't remember.
Yeah, they were in Arkansas.
Okay, because like I'm pretty sure by then, if it were dead winter, it would be a lot colder looking. But I think it was pretty dead within like late fall. I'm guessing, which that is.
Okay, yeah, we can pull from that, but that's a nice way that they were able to change up
Oh
the
yeah,
scenery because a lot they have like the forest and the sort of desert town
right.
In the John Wayne one, but even then it's still pretty lush and you see trees and stuff. it's a nice environment, but it looks the same throughout the entire journey. Whereas even
Yeah.
just by changing the weather, they get the setting to look different.
Oh yeah, and like, and that alone goes back onto the the whole aspect of the land. Like, just it's so much set dressing with the '69 version. It's meant to be, oh, it's kind of like almost a Disney World ride as they're going through like this cute, quaint town as we watch a local hanging, and then as it just kind of trotting along their way down these like very stock image backgrounds in a lot of cases. Versus the new one, it really shows, oh, this isn't all just deserts and like like crags and stuff. It's a really weirdly varied kind of strange outlaw territory of we have the desert town and we go into the scruff lands, and as we go further north we kind of run out of scruff entirely. As we hit the mountains it just becomes open plain, and then as we get into the mountainous forested regions up at the very end, as with and without snowfall, it's just like I think this movie's so gorgeous, and I think the Coens are amazing for doing it.
Yeah, I think they carry themselves a lot better with that,
Yeah.
with the way that they handle the environment. And we already talked about this, so I'm not going to go into it
No,
again. But
yeah,
how
I
they're
figured.
able to, yeah, how they're able to make the environment a character of its own. The fact that it changes so much gives more life to it than it already had.
And just in turn kind of shows the how drastic their journey is throughout this whole area, where it's like it kind of has the impression of pretty much the entirety of the '69 version has the impression of, oh, we've maybe gone like 2 miles out of town. We don't look that tired. We haven't gone through that many environments. It's just kind of like whatever. Versus the other one, without even a distinct timeline being mentioned, it's been a long way as we've seen all these varied environments.
Right.
So I really like that. It's kind of like a behind the scene. It's kind of like a background kind of context sort of situation where more showing the it's more showing process of time through environment rather than just being like, oh, we've been on the trail a couple days now.
Yeah.
So I just like I'm pretty much just all rolls back to me gushing about cool environmental shots. Like I'm like it's no hard it's not hard to guess that one of my favorite other movies is like The Revenant and Oh Brother Where Art Thou and all these other cool westerns that just take place in these cool environments.
Yeah. I see that.
Because I'm a sucker for it.
So I guess I can already kind of tell where you're leaning towards this. So
Sup-
I'm just gonna
well,
I'm just gonna go.
I mean,
Sorry.
surprisingly, it's like I'm kind of equal on both of them. But you can go and say on your point. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, it is sort of a Blade Runner type situation where I am feeling a lot towards both of them sort of equally. Like, oh well, I really do enjoy both, but if I had to pick one, I would pick the Coen Brothers True Grit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I enjoyed it as a whole more, even though there were points that the John Wayne version did better.
Right. Like the John Wayne version definitely feels more like the classic western that you love. It's hard to go wrong with John Wayne, and even like it's me saying as if I've seen a bunch of his films, but it's true. It's like he's a cool actor. The whole situation's really interesting, but it's just a really just cool quality that the Coen brothers brought to the scene where it's not too much more realistic. It's not like, dark gritty like Dark Knight Rises sort of crap. It's
Yeah,
just it's just, it's takes the environment, it takes the story, keeps it pretty much the same, but expands on it. Actually, like, it's kind of the idea of if you win the lottery, are you going to go spend it all on this really huge mansion, but then it immediately just collapses inward on itself because you can't maintain it? Or do you spend it on your own house, making it looking nicer and nicer? It's kind of what the Coen brothers have done in the second case. They had the same situation, they just made it better.
right. And a lot of the hype for, because the original True Grit's not a bad movie.
Oh
It's a
no, it's
good
a
movie.
great movie. I love it.
But a lot of the hype and build behind it is the fact that it has John Wayne in it. Like,
Yeah,
just for point of principle, this entire time, if we're not referring to them by years, which we've done a lot, we've been
Yep.
saying the Coen Brothers version and the John Wayne version. Well, I mean,
Right.
if you want to go off to directors, it's the Coen Brothers version and the Henry Hathaway version, but
But no one
who
remembers who that is.
that's not what carries the film. That's not the legacy that the film has.
Right.
It
And
is
it's
the Duke.
right. And that's kind of an interesting take on it. It's like, you wouldn't typically refer to. I mean, a lot of people would. You wouldn't typically like you and I don't really refer to the 2010 version as the Jeff Bridges version. It's like, Jeff Bridges is iconic, but we're more here for the directing style and everything, which is, I
Right.
think, is becoming which kind of goes back and forth throughout the years of how, like, which thing takes precedence, the actor involved or the director.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of has both in every case. Like, obviously, like, there's Spielberg and then there's Kubrick, but then modern era there's like Wes Anderson and Coen Brothers and that sort of thing. But then there's older actors. There's a Harrison Ford movie with Indiana Jones. Well, no, that's Spielberg as well. Crap. That's not a great example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then,
I
like, modern
guess
ones is like Chris Evans for Captain America and that sort of thing.
yeah, it varies on the legacy they lead, like what is going to drive the project. If you get a
Right.
really big name actor and a really big name director, then I mean everyone's already hyped about the project,
Mhm.
but Hollywood tends to lean into what they think is going to sell more. You have an actor that's been in a few things like, oh, he was in like 5 episodes of The West Wing, and the director is Quentin Tarantino. Well, they're going to lean on that.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost seems like they play that up in certain cases. Like, maybe they find a director they've wanted to explore some, but they can't really find a way of getting its name out there. So they get, like, fucking trying to think of a good example. Well, some big name actor nowadays whose name I cannot think of. It's just kind of interesting to always see that. It's like, oh, there's this guy. Who's this? And then big name actor. Oh my god! I'll go see it then.
Yeah, that's sort of our folly. It's not entirely Hollywood's fault. They do it because it works. You
Oh
know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've established
So
to them that it works, so they do it.
yeah, no reason to scold them for doing that. So
Oh yeah, it's just kind of a thing. It's just kind of interesting to always notice.
yeah,
And then I guess it'd be weird if we didn't notice it because we hardly ever talk about the films with the underknown director and the underknown actor. Like the
right.
biggest tent poles in our society are the ones that have at least one or the other.
Yeah, and I mean everyone's career's got to start somewhere, but at that point, the legacy's already been built up. So
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean at that point the legacy hasn't been built up, but that acts as the tent pole
Right.
from which everything else like gets
Kind of.
pitched. I don't know. This metaphor is
Yeah. This we.
going on the toilet.
It's like the tent pole from which everything grows. What?
That's what I was gonna say, and I was like,
Exactly.
ah,
Exactly. I knew you were
from
going to
which
say it. I
the
was like,
movie
I don't
industry
know if
gets
that'll work, bud.
pitched. Oh well, what do I know?
We're just a couple of cinephiles of the podcast. What do we know?
Yeah,
The fact that
I
we
mean,
use the term cinephiles unironically, that kind of shows enough of what we know.
yeah. I mean, I don't have. I really. I've said my piece. I don't have much anywhere else to go with this. Do you have any sort of
I,
final remarks before we close this out?
I mean, nothing terribly. I'm just, it would just be me continuing to gush and how modern westerns are kind of a brilliant art form versus, you can't really beat the classics of a John Wayne western. But I pretty much said it. The Coen Brothers, I think, did the better job here, but that's not in any way to say the John Wayne version was any kind of lesser in a lot of ways.
Right. I mean,
So,
that's fair. I think we're pretty fair.
yeah,
With these, we're pretty impartial going, or we try to be impartial going into it. We gave Ghostbusters we gave the new Ghostbusters its fair due. So
yeah, and then we, kind of both went for the original as the better. I keep kind of thinking.
yeah, but
I
we were
keep kind
still
of thinking. Oh yeah. I keep thinking back and I keep thinking, wow, we go for the new one a whole lot. But I think back, it's like, no, we've actually done the almost. It's almost been even winners throughout the weeks. We've yet to really
Yeah,
disagree to any one degree.
I think we agreed on a lot of similar points for Blade Runner in the
Yeah,
Blade Runner episode, but I think in the end we ended up picking different ones.
that's true. Yeah,
But regardless, you want
yeah,
to close us out?
sure. As always, I am your host Stuart.
And I was your host, Jacob.
Remember, we do have a Twitter at remind me, Jake.
It's at it remade
Yep,
at it remade on Twitter.
and go
Uh,
there for any kind of the usual updates. We will, continue to improve the quality of our setup. Now, this will be kind of a slight. This is a slight test run for our new setup, considering we're far apart at this point. And it's just kind of just onwards and upwards from here, I think.
yep,
Oh,
that's the way it goes.
please subscribe, tell your friends, enjoy the show, and we hope to,
Oh yeah, leave
we hope to, yeah,
leave that review.
yeah, we hope to entertain you further down the line.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
What is your intention, Rooster? You think 1 on 4 is a dog fall?
I mean to kill you in 1 minute, Ned. Or see you hanged in Fort Smith at Judge Parker's convenience. Which will you have?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.